First of all, welcome everyone to our What's New for Legal Service Delivery webinar series. I'm here to walk you through all the innovation in legal service delivery, specifically Contract Management Pro, that was introduced in the May store release. Before we get started, I did want to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is John Love. I'm the Director of Product Management for Contract Management Pro. I've been with the company for about 4 months, but prior to this, I spent the past 9 years in a solution consulting leadership position at a legacy CLM provider, where my team was responsible for working with customers to optimize their contract management processes. Joining me is Alex Huang, who is a Senior Innovation Solution Advisor. Alex has been with ServiceNow for close to 10 years, leading teams to recognize the value of standardizing on the Now platform. I am now going to go off video so we can focus on the presentation. So for today's session, this is part of Live on ServiceNow, a curated event series to connect you with ServiceNow experts and peers that can help you deploy your products and achieve value faster. We hope you join us again at another webinar. You can see the schedule by scanning either the QR code or using the link in the chat. Before we get started, I did want to cover some logistics. Please use the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen for any questions. This will allow us to properly document and monitor all questions. This session is also being recorded and will be shared on the ServiceNow community site, so don't worry if you miss any of the finer details being covered. Lastly, your feedback is necessary to help improve these sessions, so you'll receive a survey link after the event. We really appreciate you taking the time to enter your feedback. So for our agenda, we'll be running through an overview of CM Pro to provide a baseline understanding of what is possible. We'll then cover the new innovations that came out of our May store release, followed by a live product demonstration by Alex, and then open it up for Q&A. As with any of our presentations, there may be future products that may be discussed, and as such, they are covered under this safe harbor notice, since roadmap items are forward-looking and are subject to change without prior notice. So before we get into what Contract Management Pro is, I want to talk about the current state of contracts. Everyone on a personal and professional level interacts with contracts. For individuals, this can include cell phone contracts, apartment lease agreements, and auto loans. For businesses, this will include purchase agreements, NDAs, MSAs, partner agreements, and much more. Regardless of the use case, a contract is important because it aligns two parties on the expectation of what is going to be provided, in what quantity, in what interval, and what penalties will be incurred if the contents of the contract are not met. This helps businesses plan for downstream processes that rely on those services or goods. And as companies grow, the volume and variability within each of those contracts also grow, which is when organizations start to feel pain from a cumbersome contract management process. At a certain point, companies recognize that it's not sustainable to grow their business until they mature the fundamental process of contract management. Now that a company recognizes the problem, what do? They typically look to software. And when looking at software, it's common that legacy contract lifecycle management providers or CLM providers emphasize advanced functionality. And in doing so, they get the buy-in from uninformed customers that they need to take a leap from fully manual to fully automated. And this is a recipe for disaster. Anyone that has gone through this type of CLM implementation recognizes that this is a rocky journey. Rocky from a customization and configuration perspective, but also the change management is something many customers are not ready for. Instead, customers should be thinking about this process as a multi-stage process or a journey. And by understanding and prioritizing business challenges, then aligning those to relevant features, this saves customers the frustration associated with a big change management project, while also allowing them to recognize the value from their investment in a shorter amount of time. With that, our solution to a contract management problem is what's called Contract Management Pro. And Contract Management Pro is a thoughtfully built out contract management solution that was built in partnership with our customers, as well as legal teams, both internal and external to our organization, to help solve for the most common contracting problems as it relates to 6 key areas, which includes requests, authoring, electronic signatures, a centralized repository, obligation management, and analytics. And I'm going to go into each of these in a bit more detail. We provide our customers a self-service way to initiate the creation of a standard language contract. We also provide them a self-service way for a third-party contract to be reviewed. Regardless of the use case, there's a configurable intake form where we're able to capture all of the relevant information that your legal team determines is important, in addition to the contract itself. As they submit that request, we can identify the appropriate workflow. And in the case of a standard language contract, we can identify the appropriate contract template and then update that template with the relevant information that was captured, which can include the ability to include or exclude language or clauses based on predetermined criteria, such as who you're doing business with, the types of service that you might be providing, or even region-specific language. Just know that once that contract is generated, which can be done in a matter of seconds, it is a fully executable contract that can be sent to external parties, and that's because we are using predetermined and pre-approved legal language. In the case of a third-party contract, we allow internal and external stakeholders to continue to negotiate within the applications that they're familiar with and that they prefer, but we're able to keep all track of all versions of the contract directly within our platform. We also allow two-way communication between the requester as well as the fulfiller. That way, everyone is well in the know of where a contract is within the assignment process, the creation process, the approval process, and whether it's been sent out for external review. And that helps to limit the amount of back and forth that may happen between internal constituents. As a contract is ready for execution, we do have pre-built integrations through e-signature providers such as Adobe Sign as well as DocuSign to keep that process digital. And then once that contract comes back, we can store them all within a centralized repository, either on the Now platform or through one of our pre-built connectors through OneDrive and Google Drive. Just know that regardless of where you're storing these contracts, you can take advantage of CM Pro's robust search capabilities to search within the text within the contracts, as well as the metadata that you've been able to capture along the way. We're also able to keep track of relevant obligations, such as contract renewal dates, and then set up automatic reminders to notify relevant parties well in advance of those upcoming dates. That way they can start taking action and minimize any kind of risk of contract lapses. And because everything is being stored or being done and performed all on CM Pro, we're going to be able to provide you rich analytics through out-of-the-box and configurable dashboards and reporting that's going to provide your legal teams the much needed and wanted data to help them make better data-driven decisions. Now that we know what CM Pro is capable of doing, let's talk about the May store release. The store release include a number of enhancements, but the three that we'll cover are the SPO, Better Together plugin, Contract Workspace, and Contracts Dashboard. The first major release we'll cover in the integration between CM Pro and source-to-pay operations. Contracts exist in multiple stages of a procurement process. Two examples of this is during the bidding process. When reviewing bids from different vendors or suppliers, there may be new suppliers that you'll be working with. And part of this process will require them to be onboarded as an approved supplier, which will require the creation of standard language contracts for them to sign. Another use case is when you've awarded the bid to a supplier. At this point, third-party contracts are created by the supplier, which will need to be reviewed by your legal teams. Both of these use cases in the past would require procurement specialists to manage this manually through email, which creates a cumbersome process that opens up an organization to risk. Risk to an organization from the contract itself, but also risk to downstream processes for not having a contract in place in time. CM Pro integrated with source-to-pay operations resolves this problem by allowing the creation of standard language contracts or the request for third-party contracts to be done all within the SPO workspace. Visibility of all requests and even completed contracts are also contained within this workspace too. And what this means is that procurement specialists will be able to efficiently manage the end-to-end process for onboarding suppliers, negotiating supplier agreements, and much more, all within the workspace they work from daily. And with a more efficient process, they will be able to mitigate risk to the organization from inconsistent contracts and improve contract turnaround times. Moving on to Contract Workspace, as we expand CM Pro's reach to other lines of businesses such as SPO today, sales and order management in the near future, and others on the roadmap, legal teams will need a place to work from, and this is what Contracts Workspace is. The Contracts Workspace is going to provide your legal teams or contract administrators a clear view of important data such as requests, assigned requests, contracts in varying statuses, contracts assigned to me, and much more. When working from the Contracts Workspace, legal teams can manage workloads across users while ensuring each request is being fulfilled per their SLAs. And ultimately, a quicker contract turnaround time means the legal team is doing their part to reduce the risk to downstream processes. As for a contracts dashboard, data is something that legal teams have always wanted, but was difficult to get, especially with the contract management process. With the new enhancements to CM Pro's contracts dashboard, we're able to provide legal teams the much wanted and needed data to help identify areas that need improvements in operational efficiency. With this information readily accessible in CM Pro, legal teams will be able to make data-driven decisions to create a more efficient contract management process, which includes workload management, performance forecasting, and much more. So now, before we get into the product demonstration, I want to spend a moment to set the scene for a better together story between SPO and CM Pro. As you all may know, there are a variety of different tasks within a source-to-pay process. However, there's one task that always required a procurement professional to swivel chair out of their preferred workspace and into another application, and this is contracts. Our solution to this is Contract Management Pro. Now, with that context, I'm going to hand this over to Alex to walk you through our source to pay better together story.
Thanks, John. All right. So everyone on the call, thank you today for your time. I want to give you a quick understanding of the demo personas and the journey map that we're going to be leveraging today. On the left-hand side here, you see Shirley Ross. She's going to be our requester/employee. And then Warren Summers, who's going to be our procurement specialist. So, the reason why Contract Management Pro, we're talking about it today, is the ease of use for it, especially for simplified contracts that have already been pre-approved, if you will, right? So in this case, Shirley's going to submit a request to source some applications. Warren's going to work on this request, and then he's going to verify that the NDA is signed, create an NDA, etc. And then from there, we will close out the demonstration. So moving forward now. Again, what you're seeing here is the service portal. Shirley is an employee with the company. She's got a board meeting that's coming up, and she wants to share some sensitive information, but she also wants to be able to do it in such a way that it's going to dazzle, right? It's going to be showing off, if you will, because it is a bunch of folks that are going to be joining at a high level. So she's requesting these PowerPoint toolkits, and she's got a budget of about $8,000 that she can spend on this. So from a requesting perspective, Shirley's going to come in here. She wants a quote. She needs a quote. And the reason why, again, as I mentioned, it's for upcoming board meeting, and she wants to dazzle. That's the reason why she's asking for this. And obviously, she wants to get this as soon as possible, so we'll put in some dates here to start with. And additional notes, right? She is going to be discussing some sensitive information. All right. So from an end user perspective, it's that simple to come in here and request something from a portal perspective. She can also review what she has just done. Now, obviously, she's the end user. Now, let's see what this looks like on the back end. So we're going to transition over to Warren. And Warren is our procurement specialist. And so Warren is now going to work on the request that Shirley has just put in. And this here right here is the source to pay workspace. This is where Warren comes in. He understands his job functions, things that he has to do, but we're going to go over this maybe at another time. Today, we're going to jump in and understand the request that Shirley has made. So from a procurement perspective, sorry, 1 second here, folks.
And while Alex gets that set up, I just want to remind everyone, if there are any questions, please add them to the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen.
Yep, John, give me just 1 second, if you wouldn't mind covering for me for just a second. Something seems to be hung up here. I apologize, folks. Give me just 1 second.
And I just want to recap what Alex just walked you through. So Alex provided a view of what your employees would be able to see as they're going into ServiceNow, as they normally would, to submit a request for an item to be purchased. And really what Alex is going to be showing you at the next point is what source to pay operations is going to do in the background, which is going to allow those procurement professionals to start taking action on that request, which could require the necessity for a contract to either be created or for a contract to be reviewed, which is where the connection point between ServiceNow and, source to pay operations and Contract Management Pro come into play.
Sorry about that, John. Are you able to see my screen okay now?
Yep, we can see it.
Apologize, folks, for a little bit of snafu there. All right. So again, Warren is in here now. He is looking at the request that Shirley has submitted, and Warren's got to start qualification on this particular request to make sure that everything is good in order for him to be able to approve this for Shirley. So we're going to start the qualification, and as this is loading up, right, there's some things that we need to take into account. So as you remember earlier, Shirley put in that she is going to share some sensitive information. So as we go through this, there's some things that we can look at the details of the request that Shirley had, the purchase line that's associated to this, but also Warren knows that he's going to have to create some sort of NDA contract. So with this being said, right, the simple fact now is that Warren is able to come in here because it is tied together on the platform to be able to pull in that information. And as you notice, Bright Carbon is the supplier of choice currently at this point. And if you look here, Jim Anderson is our supplier contact, sorry. So with this being said, the type of contract that we're going to have is going to be our own paper, right? So anything that we're going to have somebody else sign is going to be our own paper. If we're dealing with something else from a third party, we could choose that, of course. And in this case, it's going to be an NDA. Very simple contract, and we're going to choose some dates, start it tomorrow, and have it end at the end of next week. So now Warren's able to initiate this contract. He doesn't have to swivel chair. Everything is now on the platform, and he can move back and forth and not disrupt his work accordingly. All right. So from a contracts perspective, we do tie in, as John mentioned, with either Google Drive or OneDrive, etc. So we can have that contract here as well. And as you can see, we are tied into OneDrive currently. If there were any other supporting documents that could be, that maybe you're working on, it could be uploaded here as well. But as you can see here, we've got a couple of signatories that are required. And as you look at the signatory order, 10 being the lowest, that's going to be Warren. So Warren is going to be our first signatory, and then Jim is going to be our second signatory. So from a integration perspective, as John and I mentioned before, we do tie into either Adobe Sign or with DocuSign. So now from a contract and DocuSign perspective, that email is sent off. Warren has now got it in his inbox. He can review the document, look at it, and make sure everything is great. He's going to agree to this and move forward. So now from a signing perspective, he's able to log in here, sign it, and be done with it. Now, once Warren finishes this and signs off accordingly, that workflow is going to continue on. And now we're going to look at it from Jim's perspective. And as I mentioned before, Jim was in there because he was associated with the account of Bright Carbon. So now in Jim's email inbox, he can review this document as well. And then he'll do the exact same thing that Warren did. Agree to it, sign off, and then now we have a fully executed contract. And the great thing about this is because it is all digitized, everyone will have the information in their inbox, right? So at the end of the day, the emails will go through, everyone signed off on it, and then people will have it in their inbox to keep in their own personal repository or work repository or whatever it may be. All right. And as I refresh this page, right, the status is now closed complete. We've got signed documents here from both sides, and everything is good to go. Okay. Now, with that being said, we're going to continue moving forward. And, again, this is the source and review request. We're going to continue on. The next stage of this is going to pull up the purchase lines. We're going to look at the purchase lines here in just a second. So we'll continue on with this. Now, if there was any other approval requirements, they would be stated here. Maybe if there's a dollar sign that, or a dollar value that has to, maybe it's like $10,000 that you would have to assign it to someone else for approval, whatever that may be. You can have additional approvers here as necessary, but because of this dollar limit value, we're not going to need an additional approver. There are going to be some additional work, though, that has to be done. So as you can see in this particular instance here, Warren's got to do a couple of things that have been assigned to him. He's got to review the budget details for the purchase requisition, and then he's also got to conduct a due diligence on the supplier. So we'll do this relatively quickly. So again, here we're going to look at the budget details. We know that there's a budget of $8,000 that Shirley has requested. That's fine. We know that it's within our budget as well. We can move forward to the next step. And then conducting the due diligence on the supplier. So if it's a new supplier, we want to make sure that we've got the necessary information, that they're in good standing, if they're an existing supplier, what have you. But again, for the sake of simplicity for this demonstration, we'll move forward with this as well. All right. So as I refresh the screen, you'll see that those two cases have been closed completely because Warren has just done them. Now, as we move forward, if there is, again, a large enough contract that we need to do some sort of negotiation, we can create a negotiation event. But again, this one is relatively simple. The dollar threshold is low, so we'll continue moving forward. So now we've completed the qualification. We've done our due diligence as a procurement specialist. Everything is in place. Everything is good to go. We can complete this and get some things moving for Shirley. All right. So now we can add pricing to this. And as I mentioned earlier, the purchase lines, we can go back into there, look at the purchase line, and the budget was at $8,000. We're going to get a quantity of one from a supplier perspective. And you know what? We actually find out that it's $7,500. But because Warren is such a good procurement specialist, maybe he got it down to $7,000. And now at this point, everything is good to go. We've done the NDA to make sure that we can share the necessary private information, the necessary sensitive information, and now we can award this to the supplier. And this concludes the demonstration of Contract Management Pro. Back to you, John.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. So I just want to recap some of the things that Alex had showed and some of the things that Contract Management Pro is actually capable of doing. Let me go ahead and share my screen once again, though. So what Alex showed you is the ability for employees to actually go through a portal that they would normally go through to actually submit for a product to be purchased. That automatically would sync up with source to pay operations, which is going to allow procurement teams to see the request and they can start taking action on that. Where CM Pro comes into play is as they're actually going through and submitting a bid with different suppliers or vendors, there could be a necessity to actually onboard a new supplier. And that's going to then require that standard language contracts could be created and signed. And directly within the SPO workspace, the procurement professional is going to be able to initiate the creation of those standard language contracts. And an example of that would be the NDA. Once they create the NDA, they can actually send that out directly from source to pay operations for external review, get the signature, and have full visibility all within the SPO workspace. So it doesn't require them to swivel a chair out to a separate application to take care of that task. Alternatively, as you're moving along within the procurement process, there may be a need as you're awarding the bid to a particular supplier or vendor to be able to actually ingest that third-party paper, because now you actually need to start negotiating on it. As you ingest that third-party paper, that specific action can also be done within the source to pay operations workspace. So once again, that procurement professional, they can go ahead and submit the request, interact directly with the legal teams without having to leave the workspace that they work from daily. The legal team is going to be able to work from contracts workspace, and then they can start negotiating on the contract itself. Once that contract is ready for execution, we can send it out through one of our pre-built connectors through DocuSign or Adobe Sign. And then the ability for that document to automatically be stored directly within source to pay operations for quick reference is part of how the plugin actually works. So once again, procurement professionals in the previous life, they might have had to manage this process outside of the workspace that they regularly work from. With the source to pay better together story, they don't need to do that. They can take action by initiating the request, communicating directly with the legal professionals, or even referencing past contracts all within the source to pay workspace. So with that being said, we walked through quite a bit, which includes what is CM Pro, to level set what's capable today, what was introduced in the May store release, which is the Better Together store with source to pay operations, the introduction to the contracts workspace, which is part of our overall strategy to allow CM Pro to be used across the entire enterprise, and then also the contracts dashboard. This is extremely important for any legal teams that are looking to modernize their contract management process, because in the past they didn't have access to data, and now they do have access to data to help them identify areas of improved efficiency, as well as for them to make better data-driven decisions. So with that being said, I'm going to pause here and take a look at the Q&A to see if there's any questions for us. And I didn't see any questions that came in. Alex, did you see anything?
No, I did not, John.
All right. So once again, if there are any questions, feel free to use the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. It doesn't look like anything's coming in, so we can wait for another 30 seconds. But of course, if there are any questions, if you're watching this recording, or if there's any questions after the fact, feel free to reach out to your account team, and then they're going to be able to answer any questions for you. A question did come out for, are there any AI capabilities? So once again, part of our strategy as a company at ServiceNow is to be AI first. So we are infusing AI across our entire platform, which includes Contract Management Pro. So for a roadmap item, and once again, the safe harbor agreement was shown at the beginning of this presentation, we are actually introducing AI capabilities by the end of this year, which is the ability for us to ingest third-party paper, automatically use AI to review that contract to identify risky clauses or even missing clauses, and then use playbook automation to make recommendations from our clause library to identify what types of pre-approved language should we be potentially inserting into the contract. In 2025, we're going to expand beyond that to introduce enhanced AI capabilities to allow that same type of review to be done on a variety of different types of contract types instead of just NDAs. And then we're also going to be able to use AI to automatically ingest third-party paper, automatically review that paper, and then pull out relevant metadata as well as obligations. All right. Are there any additional questions? All right. It looks like nothing else is coming in. We just hit the 8:30 mark, my local time. So what I'll do is I'll close this out. But once again, if there are any questions about what CM Pro is capable of doing, some of the future capabilities to our roadmap, feel free to reach out to your account team, and they can share with you some additional information. And if necessary, they can always schedule a meeting and set you up with the product team as well. All right. Have a great day, everybody.